So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you're showing up from. We have people that come from all over different parts of the world, so I like to acknowledge that the time zone might be a bit different for you. What I'd like to do before we get going is what most of you who have been in my class in particular. Hello, Susan Keeley, nice to see you, or at least see you here. I just want to take a few moments and come to this space. Maybe it's more for me. I'm hoping it's for you too. So we take a few nice deep breaths and sort of work with our parasympathetic nervous system, gauging that vagus nerve and bringing it online, and just appreciating the time that we're going to have together to be able to talk a little bit and explore some of the most current coursework that we've undertaken. So take a few nice deep breaths as you feel nice and ready. Release where you were before you showed up here and sit here with us in this moment as we have an open conversation and question and answers. Hey, Kamal, nice to see you. There's Susan.
Hello.
So my name's Brad Hardie, for those of you who don't know me. And I am, among other things, the Director of Education here at Moving the Human Spirit. I have my business partner, Susan Hogarth, here today too, which is always a pleasure. And I'm pleased to be here to discuss this newest course in our portfolio that's called Trauma-Informed Relationship Coaching Certification. A mouthful like all of our courses, but we want to make sure that we have the certification at the end of it. So my business partner, Susan, and I, of course, have been inspired to explore the impact of trauma and discover different ways to help people adapt and thrive in that particular environment. As most of you know, especially those that have taken our trauma-informed coaching certification. Through our coaching experience, of course, we've noticed the recurring theme of trauma and the influence that it has on our clients, the lives of our clients. That's why we show up the way that we do. And for over the last 10 years, Moving the Human Spirit, Susan and I have really dedicated ourselves to coaching trauma survivors, serving as a guide of resilience and positive thinking and outcomes for them. We prioritize, of course, building enduring, rewarding relationships. That's why you're here today. And also meeting our client wherever they are on their journey, which is always such an important thing to do. And I know that you guys, some of you will have shared that perspective for sure. So our commitment, of course, is fostering that balance and healthy lifestyle through coaching. And we highlighted that in trauma-informed, being the first trauma-informed ICF course with our TIC that was ever recognized. As most of you know, the ICF for years didn't work with trauma. As most of you also know, if you're a coach, they might not, but we did. Because our clients show up with trauma no matter if they work with it or not. But I think everything's evolving. We're growing. We're opening up as a group. So I think that's pretty important. So our shared commitment, of course, and moving the human spirit, which is made up of, there's Jamie. Hi, Jamie. Nice to see you. Which is made up of coaches, mentors, educators, and facilitators, course designers. We wouldn't be able to do our work if we didn't have course designers and trainers. Susan and I do all of our course designing, and we share a lot of that. Our team members, of course, encompass quite a global network of trauma-informed coaches, and they unite through that shared dedication of making the world a better place, individuals dealing with traumas, and being able to ensure that they have readily access to assistance. And we see that as being a huge benefit, especially over the last few years with COVID, where as we know now, it's very complicated and difficult to get people to be able to work with because our medical system is quite overrun. So I wanted to talk just for a moment. Some of you may or may not know this. For those of you who don't, please just listen in, and those who do, bear with me. Our courses were all born out of the work that we did with the Canadian military through a project called COPE. And COPE COPE is a acronym for Couples Overcoming Post-Traumatic Stress Every Day. And we found supporting and coaching veterans who were returning to their families after deployment, who were suffering post-traumatic stress, was quite needed. And someone was not, I'm just going to turn someone off there. Let's see, there we go. Mute that. What we found is that on their return, they had very few programs that dealt with more than just the client themselves, that dealt with the family impact, the children, their workplaces, the spouse, or whoever the relevant partner was in the family. So they created this program, and we ended up writing a second piece of the program for them, which was we like to call it exit coaching. Susan and I called it that. And what we mean by that is that there was an intensive program that was psychologist, and then we would do the coaching after. So there was a week-long intensive with the people attending the course, and then we would do a follow-up for 18 sessions afterwards. Some of you here today actually do that work with us. I know Susan Keeley Kamal does it. I don't know if Susan's twin sister does it that's on the line here with us today. I see two of you. So the work that we do actually is born from that project. And over the years, we're proud to say that the success rate's been around 85 to 87% success. There's different reasons for that. Hey, Tanya, nice to see you. And as we grow, we continue to educate ourselves in the trauma-informed practice. Also, students, of course, have been very overwhelmed and encouraged us to talk about doing a course that is relative to relationship. And I want to just make a point. One of the things that we're doing here within the trauma-informed relationship course is that it's not just about couples. Susan and I were quite clear that we want to be able to work with trauma-informed in relationships. Couples do not own relationships. We all own relationships. So one of the things that we did in this particular course was made sure that we looked at impact in very different ways. So the trauma-informed relationship coaching is really a specialized approach to coaching, and it recognizes and addresses the impact of trauma on individuals and their relationships. And that encompasses a huge amount. That's employer, employee, that's families. We're happy to say it is connected relationships that are intimate. It's relationships that are not intimate. It's relationships that we have within our community, how we show up, how we maneuver. So the fundamental premise of the trauma-informed relationship coaching is to understand that past traumatic experiences can significantly influence how individuals navigate and engage in the relationships that they have. So it's a bit broader sense than what we're thinking about in trauma-informed and working with one person. We're now working with more than one person and how they relate within that. So we're looking at things, yes, couples, of course, but also employment areas. We're also looking at family systems. That's one of my favorite places to look, because we don't build or work with one person in trauma. It's not that they don't affect those around them. Communities, how do we do community engagement and work within environments? You know, we're working with different organizations over the last few years. Susan and I have found our work with people such as the Anishinaabe, the Wet'suwet'en, different government employees, the Fraser Health Medical. We're all dealing with relationships within the traumatic base and how we move those relationships forward, caring for it in a traumatic lens, but also the relationship lens. So coaching in this field's coaches in this field are trained to approach their clients with a deeper awareness of the potential effects of trauma and what might happen, and also fostering an atmosphere where they can have more trust and collaboration within the relationship itself. So the trauma-informed relationship certification quite happily, has now been accredited by the International Coaching Federation. And they're offered us, thank you, Galina. Yeah, we were very happy. So it's been accredited, and we've achieved 40 CCEs for it, which is always a nice number for coaches that are coming back to get their PCC, MCC, ACC, doing a reaccreditation. So 40 CCEs, 34 are in core competencies. And of course, that leaves 6 within resource development. The course was designed to elevate the understanding of trauma through the relationship lens. And in doing so, this course offers a deeper and more insightful process of working within that context. The curriculum, which is interesting, what we've done actually, the work with COPE in the program that we've run with them, we have taken the 5 steps that we initiated with that particular project. So the research we originally did with that, it has the trauma-informed lens, and we looked at how you're able to build a relationship within this trauma-informed lens. And we have come up with the 5 steps that we use that will coordinate within the trauma work that we already do. And the reason we think a little bit about this course as being an add-on to what you guys have already learned, or those of you that work in trauma and have a knowledge of it, is that we didn't want to get into the bases of trauma. We wanted to work with people that already had an understanding of it and dive in a little bit deeper with the process of being able to work with people in introduction, being able to then do a building process whereby we are looking at maneuvering the introduction, helping people relate to each other again, which is always important after trauma because there's been a break in the relationship, being able to build the relationship again. Every relationship is dependent upon the third factor, which is love and connection. So regardless of what the relationship is, if it's a personal relationship or an intimate relationship, we're looking at love. We're also looking at connection when it comes to such family, relation, employer, employee, community. There is a connection that's needed there. And then, of course, we work on the 2 next factors, one of them being growth, of course, because we can't have anything move forward without pouring growth into it. And then the last one is sustainability. And we're looking at how do we work with people so that they can move forward in a sustainable manner. I mean, inevitably, all of the work that we do in trauma-informed coaching and trauma work in any of these lenses is how do we remain sustainable. That's why we enjoy doing it as coaches, because our project is to relieve ourselves of the client, not to have them for 10 years. Even though we have clients that come back, but they come back to celebrate wins, and they come back to get a refill. They are not dependent upon us. They have managed to move forward and are sustainable. So why this course? Well, our hope is that by enrolling in the trauma-informed relationship course is that it's an invaluable investment for students seeking to foster healthier and more supportive connections. And of course, as coaches, we know that to stay on top of whatever the latest thing is usually beneficial if we're able to move it forward in a way that is going to assist us with the clients that we're working with. So in today's complex and dynamic world, individuals are often carrying past traumas, and that can significantly impact the relationships that they're having and forming. We know that. Most of the relationship work or most of the coaching work that we do are people coming to us not solely about themselves, even though that is a piece of it, but it's usually another dynamic that's working within the conversation that we're having with them. I'm not able to show up the way that I want to. I'm having an impact because of the people around me or about how they're showing up. I'm having a relationship issue with a spouse, a family member, an employer, an employee, my community, my involvement with other people. So there's all kinds of these things. So being able to look at it from the relationship point of view, I find is quite interesting. So a trauma-informed coaching lens course equips us and the students with the knowledge and the skill set to better understand the profound effects of trauma. But not only that, how do we work with it within the relationship? How do we take these spaces and the nuance and start working with more than one person? So we have group, but we have relationship. Group's very different than what we're talking about here. Our latest course on group, which we will be submitting for CCEs, is very different again. Relationships are specifically the interaction between one person and a significant other person in their life. And I don't mean significant in the marriage way. I mean in a relationship way that they need to foster and grow or separate completely. And that happens across the board. Friendships, families, although it's harder to get rid of family, I hear, even though there might be an attempt. So this particular course, I'll just say a few things about it. It explores the inner dynamics or the interplay of trauma within relationships. What we'll be looking at and addressing are patterns, conflict, emotions, labels, family systems, emotional maturity. We'll talk a little bit about that. That is another sideline to emotional intelligence. So it's not only knowing what our emotions are, but being able to work with them within spaces. You'll immerse yourself in those 5 structures that I talked to you about, those being the introduction, building, love, connection, we put together, growth, sustainability, and then incorporating, of course, the ICF core competencies. So this course has all of the ICF core competencies walking hand in hand throughout it. It enhances the coaching skills and effectiveness. We can't do our courses. We don't want to do that because of our ethical standards and guidelines. We always want to be aligned with the ICF core competencies. That's why we've written this course to align with those as we move throughout it. We also do, which is quite interesting in this particular course, we will be looking at case studies. And as you can appreciate, it's very complicated to, when you coach someone, to ask them if we can record it and then review it within a class environment, because some of the subject matter is so personal. So we have gone ahead and created case studies that are based on the work that we've already done. And those will be interjected throughout. And there will be homework, of course, because who doesn't like that? So really what we're looking to do is to enhance our coaching structure, take it to another level to be more specific in couples. The trauma-informed coaching certification course itself, like I said at the beginning, was born from this work that we actually do and continue to do. And at the onset of that particular course, we found it much more important to be able to equip students with understanding trauma, how it shows up psychologically, emotionally, and being able to work with that first with an individual. And now this one takes us to the next step. So what it is eight classes, 3 hours each, and it is an online course. And again, deals with all of the topics that I have suggested so far. And it's a fairly rich course. There's lots of interaction. Of the pilot that we ran was quite interesting. It was of students that have come back to take it. And of course, as a result of it, we ended up having very deep conversations. And maybe that's another reason, selfishly, I like to see people that have already taken the trauma-informed, any trauma-informed training doesn't have to be ours, but just we're not going to be going through the signs of trauma. We want people to already know that. We're not going to be going through the acute, complex, those types of things. We want to have a knowledge of that already so we can get on to the deeper work. So that is my conversation around it. You can see I'm a little pumped about it because it's been a while coming. And of course, it's fresh, and I like fresh stuff when it comes to the trauma-informed stuff. I always think it's good to be on top of things. So what I want to do is just invite anyone that has any questions, and I will try very well to answer them. Janet.
Yeah, so you mentioned online. Is it live online or is it like just
Yes,
going at the class?
absolutely. Yeah, it's live online. It's interesting, I just never find myself able to produce courses that people can sign into. And I'm not going to say I'll never, because who knows, Susan might have me do funny things in my older age. Well, now that I'm here, but I never find it never has the impact that you want it to have. You need to have the conversation with other people. It has to be live to me. So yes, good question, Janet. Brad.
Do you have a cost structure in mind yet?
Yes, Susan can let you know that. She is my cost person. Do you have that on hand, Sue?
Sorry, yep. It's 2,400 Canadian. So for those of you in the US, that's probably about $1.25.
It's a good exchange rate.
Yeah, exactly. And Brad will tell you a little bit about the promotion code at the end.
Oh, yes, yes. So any of our students, we have a 15%. Anyone that comes back and takes our courses, of course, has a 15% discount. And so if there's, and I'm stuck on the promotion code because I don't really know it off the top of my head,
Yeah.
but you can always talk to Susan about that. But yes, our students always have a 15% discount coming back to do anything with us, unless they're repeating a course, and then I think the discount rate is 50% or something like that on a repeat course. But yes, Brad, it is looking like that. And as Susan said, I think it's favorable US exchange. So, and I'm just going to go to my chat here. Pardon me, I'm just getting used to this new Zoom thing that has come up. Anne-Marie says, will tick, there was an option of adding the 10-hour supervision needed to renew ACC at ICF. Do you have that option again?
Yeah, what I'd say, Anne-Marie, is book a phone call with me. And you and I can go over the different options and stuff like that for you.
We'll make it happen for you.
Yeah.
Janet.
Yeah, so constraints. Is there a limit of the number of students you will have in this first offering?
Yeah, always a number of students will always be, our aim is to always just have smaller classes. So we usually max at 20. The most I think we've ever done in a course, and that was through begging, was 22. And it didn't affect the course that heavily. So it was still rich. But yes, we try to cap it at 18 or 20. 20's fine. Usually we get around 18. Like we like that number because we want to have an intimate class. It's interesting when students come back because we did the pilot and a lot of them, well, all of them had come back from as students of ours. And it was interesting how they fell into place intimately within the first hour or so. So, and people that do trauma work, I think, regardless if they're a student of ours or not, because, I think if they're committed to the work, they just get at it. You know what I mean? So yeah, we find 20's enough. We want to hear everyone's voices too, Janet. So that's what's important to us, to keep the classes at a minimum. So if you're looking for a big show, don't come to us, go somewhere else. Any other questions? Be happy to answer them.
Do you
Alina?
anticipate teaching this again? Or I guess I'm guessing, but when I check in with you, that'll depend on demand.
Sorry, you're asking, will we be giving this course again? Yes, it'll become a regular placement within our offering.
Okay.
So we will have this, I would say, Susan and I are discussing, it depends on how many people are interested, because like Janet and I were just saying, we're going to keep the class sizes to a minimum. Well, which we tend to always do that. I don't want to, it just happens to be the way that we do it. We usually always just have a class size of 20. We just find it the best for the work that we're trying to conduct. And Tanya could probably, and Kamal could probably answer that. Tanya does facilitation for us. It's just a much more intimate approach to the work that we're doing and to be able to get people to understand it, but also feel like everyone's getting what they came for. But yes, to your answer, or to your question, we will be doing it again. Can't
Bob,
shut me up once I get going.
Bob, a couple people want to sign up but weren't able to do it this time. And Bob, the fire chief, says hi.
Oh, good. Say hi to Bob. Is he doing well? I hope.
He's doing great. Yeah,
Fantastic.
yeah, it's come a long way.
Great guy. Say hi to him
Yes.
for me.
I will.
So yes, we are going to have it as a regular piece to our repertoire. And Susan and I, we were looking at it because there is a piece of it that says we would like people to be, have an understanding of trauma. We know that that will be something that we'll offer it probably once or twice a year, again, depending upon who is interested and who would like to take it. So. And some of the things, of course, that we'll be looking at. Yeah, sorry, Janet, go ahead.
Yeah, the application says to have a conversation with Susan. So if we're attending this session, do we have to
Does that
contact
count?
Susan?
Susan, does that count?
It does, because basically we're going over what's going to happen in the course, the fact that it's 100% online. Brad, maybe you want to touch on how much extracurricular work there is to do outside of class time. So if you cover that, then yes, we can say that we've had the conversation with Susan.
Yeah. So what happens is that right now what we're doing is what we found there's two interesting things about this course that I'll put out to you right now. One of them is that we're going to involve case studies in the course. So there will be some work after class to look at the case studies and to have a consideration about how we deal with the certain situations that we will be feeding you. And then the next day in the class, we'll be going through those in the class review. And it'll be this period where we're going to discuss as a class what it is that we would have done. How would we have addressed this? And then we talk about it fully in class, best practices and how we would move forward. So there's a consideration to understand, depending on how fast you move, there's an allowance for an hour and a half of homework at the end of classes. Now, that allowance is there depending on how people maneuver their work. So I'll leave that right there. The second piece of this project that's unique is that there's no exam to it. There is a homework component at the end of the course, which is selected by each student. So the offering is that you will be granted 3 hours to do whatever pleases you. If that's a case study, if it's a review in the course, if it is the pilot that we ran, I had 3 case studies. I had 4 reviews of the course. I had, and that was people writing a case study. It was very interesting and fun. So some people just wrote an essay on it. So the idea is to give the student the opportunity. Oh, and I had one student, actually do a slide presentation, which was fantastic. So she sent that as her homework. So whatever turns the student on, whatever they feel the happiest doing, that's what we've left them to do, and they're allotted 3 hours to do it. And this is something new that we're trying, and it came out of the pilot program. I asked them what it is they would like to do, and that's what they came up with as a class. And I personally like it so much, I actually am going to take it to the next course that we write. I can't think of a better way of inclusion in people and how their learning skills work to just say, you do it however you feel fit, you're allotted this amount of time, and submit it. The only thing that's the same is that it's within 7 days after the last day of class, but still manageable. Amrita, the reason I asked this is because I'm struggling with the timing. Okay, perfect. Okay, I see maybe someone's already there. Okay, Susan's answering those questions. Any other questions, insights, thoughts? Sound like an interesting course? Yeah, Brad.
How do we sign up?
Ah, Susan will be the assistant for that. She will help us out. And Susan, oh, there we are. TIRC 15% is the promotion code. And Susan, would it be my understanding? I'm a little foreign on this because you and Libby do such a good job. So when they go to fill out the application online, it's of course on the trauma informed coaching line. If they fill that application out, they can put the TIRC 15%, and Libby knows to then process the invoice with their 15% discount. Correct? But you're on mute.
Sorry, I was grabbing the link to the, there it is. There is the link for the, for the program, for the contract. Yes, so there is a space in there right underneath that when you say that, yes, I want the trauma informed relationship course. There's a space in there that says any additional details, then in there you can put the TIRC 15%.
Okay, and that link might have just went to one person, Sue.
Oh, sorry, my apologies. It went to Tanya.
Tanya, you can just put that in the link.
There you go. So yeah, so everything is pretty straightforward from there.
So I want to just, you guys can ponder a few questions. I just wanted to go through a little bit about what the actual days look like. We'll be looking at, again, covering the core competencies as we move through. And when we look at each core competency, we then go, okay, that's nice. How do we do it within a relationship setting? So each time we address those core competencies, and of course we have those there because we want our CCEs. That's what, as coaches that are already accredited, we want to be able to take this back. We want to look at how we co-create relationships with the steps that we're moving through. So introductions, how do we work with people to reintroduce them to each other? That's something that's always interesting. Do many of you here work with more than one client at a time? Yeah, yeah. So you know the process and how we're working through it. So we really look at how do we navigate? What are some of the questions that we ask when we're doing this? We want to be able to look at patterns and themes. It's another thing that we'll address within this course itself. We'll look at values. Values, of course, is always foundational. And if Brad happens to be signed up to the course, he won't let you get away without talking about values. He is a value specialist. The other one will be, of course, building trust and safety within relationships themselves, understanding conflict. So having a knowledge and understanding around conflict, beliefs in relationships. I don't have to explain very much about that for all of us, how beliefs can influence relationships. We're going to look at understanding identity a little bit different. We're going to look at self-awareness. And of course, what comes with that is emotional maturity. We have a lot of information around emotional intelligence, but I think diving in a bit deeper with the emotional maturity is always interesting. We look at that on the step 3, creating. We're going to be looking at, of course, listening actively, how to maneuver a coaching session while listening to more than one person. The other thing we're going to do is look at understanding labels, the importance of labels, the impact that they have, especially in couples, in relationships, in families. We'll be looking at logical levels in the relationship content, and we're going to look at something called the language of blame. And that is an exploration on some of how we speak and talk within the blame lens. Evoking awareness, family systems. I could have wrote a whole course on family systems. I find it be one of the most interesting things to work in. If any of you do family work, it probably is one of the most dynamic and interesting things I've ever done. Facilitating client growth, of course we do, and what we'll be talking about there is visioning future states. So we talk a little bit about how we get the environment, how we get response from relationships, and envisioning future states, how we work with both people or a number of people in doing that. Of course, looking at removing roadblocks, that's always one of our steps in the work that we do. Collaboration and referral. We talk a little bit about collaboration and referral on the last day. The interesting thing I find with doing any kind of work beyond one-on-one, it's always good to talk about referral and collaboration, because if groups, when we move into group coaching, of course, we look at that even more. And of course, then a group reflection, and there are case studies throughout. There's a few more extra case studies in the end of the manual itself, just out of interest for people that like to look at different scenarios. So that is about all I can do. Any new questions come up out of that particular work or conversation? Hello, Lori Wagner. Nice to see you. Noelle, Stefan. Does everyone feel complete with what they needed to know for today? Any other questions, insights? Janet?
Yeah, just one final question. So of the payment plan, do you have a payment plan on this course available through PayPal, or is it a one-time payment?
You know what, I'm just actually looking at the contract, and it's actually set up as a one-time payment. However, we can do a 3-month payment plan option. So it would be an additional $250 to do that. And again, what you could do is just write down in that comment piece of it, just that you're requiring a 3-month payment plan option for an additional $250, and then Ashley, and then Libby will put that in your PayPal information.
Thank you guys so much for showing up here today. Been a complete pleasure seeing the familiar faces. And Brenda, I feel like I've seen you on maybe a call or something because you look familiar to me, but if not,
Yeah.
nice to meet you. Take care, everyone.
I
And
just completed your recent course last Friday, and I want to really acknowledge both Kim and Libby. They were really truly awesome.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Brenda. I
No
appreciate that.
Brad, before you let everybody go, Ashley's just put a link to the post-traumatic awareness month talk you're going to be doing on June the
Thank you.
20th. So
Yeah, I'm actually going to be doing a talk for PTS month, and it's going to be on relationships and how we're impacted within relationships with post-traumatic stress. So thank you, Ashley. That's why we hire her. Good stuff. Thank you, everyone. Pleasure
have
to
an
see
amazing
you.
day,
Have yourself a
everybody.
fantastic weekend.
If you have any additional questions, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm
Or
always
hang
here to
out.
support.
We're here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Nice to see you.